Welcome back to Politics Nation. Among the greatest honors of my career as a civil rights activist was the time I spent with the late South African leader, Nelson Mandela, as his country was just casting off its history of racial apartheid, and he was serving as the first president of a now integrated nation. In his absence, my friendship with members of his family has grown. And earlier today at our National Action Network here in New York, his oldest living daughter joined me, having just published her own account of her father's life, a brand new book titled Mandela, in honor of an extraordinary life. Joining me now live in the studio is Dr. Mackie Mandela, social justice advocate and daughter of Nelson Mandela. Dr. Mandela, honored to have you here in studio tonight, honored you came with us this morning. Your father passed away 10 years ago this week after leaving an indelible mark on South Africa and on the whole world and on me and other activists in our own work as activists. And now you have this new book from your own account as his oldest living daughter. I'm humbled that to say that you had me write the foreword. So I know how powerful it is for my audience watching. Why don't you tell us, what do we learn from this book that we didn't know about your father, Madiba, before?
Well, first I have to say thank you very much, Reverend. And to say to you personally, I chose you to write a foreword to this book because you follow in my father's footsteps. My father's Xhosa name is Rolihlahla. One is brave enough to challenge the status quo. And I think that looking at your career, you've always challenged the status quo on behalf of those who are oppressed in this country. And you have not minced your words. You've been true and authentic to yourself. And so the reason why I wrote this book was to write a book fully about my father, not just Nelson Mandela, the politician, the freedom fighter. I wanted to write a book about Nelson Mandela, the human being. A son, a father, a brother, an uncle, a grandfather. And actually to highlight that my father was formed by the customs and the traditions of his ancestors. And he never forgot that. And that the issue of kinship and lineage was very, very important to my father, because that what makes a home, a household in the African culture. And I think that one of the things is that my father came from humble beginnings. And he was prepared to be mentored by others like Walter Sisulu and learn from them. And he was a student of history and of life. And the fact that he encountered a lot of obstacles in the way did not deter him from the cause that he wanted. And so as the generations now who the baton has been passed on to continue the struggle for freedom, because as long as there is a person in the world who's not free, we can claim total freedom anywhere in the world that we exist. And so that fight has to continue, and we have to be courageous, persevere, because in the end, we will win.
You know, earlier today in your remarks at National Action Network headquarters, I related when your father came to New York in 1993 to address the United Nations here. But his first stop was at a Baptist church, Canaan Baptist Church in Harlem, where he joined along with Reverend Wyatt T. Walker, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and others. And the picture is on the wall at NAN headquarters. Why was it so important to your father that he would always relate to leaders around the world that were fighting systems, and African-American leaders like Randall Robinson? Harry Belafonte was a dear friend of his, Reverend Jesse Jackson. Why was it important to him to build relationships with human rights leaders here in the United States? What did he take away, and what did he want to give in those distinct relationships?
Remember that my father and his colleagues learned from the struggles of emancipation and the civil rights movement in this country from Dr. Martin Luther King and others. And during our dark days of apartheid, the people who kept the struggle alive, because we could not in South Africa, were fellow compatriots in the US, in the UK, in Europe. And my father was determined that his first port of call when he's free is to go back to those fellow compatriots and say from the bottom of our hearts, we're saying thank you. We have not reached where we want to reach, but your support has made us survive the life sentences and the brutal conditions of Robben Island. And so we are here today because you never forgot about us. And that's why I say kinship, lineage, friendship. And as my father said, nobody can choose their friends. Their friends, whether loved or hated by the West, they were their friends in the trenches, and they will continue to be their friends until the end.
As we watch the rise of authoritarian leaders and governments around the world, what are your thoughts as the daughter of the man who suffered under and fought against apartheid South Africa, only to lead the nation as its first black president, calling for reconciliation? Do you think he would have been able to keep that outlook of watching far-right movements grow in power over the last several years in different parts of the world?
I think my father was always outspoken, and he would criticize. My father has said very eloquently, he is against white domination and he is against black domination. My father was against any form of domination upon a people. He believed that people have the innate right to live freely and independently as human beings in this world.
Lastly, what was he like as a father? We know him as this great leader. What was he like as a father, and what do you think his legacy is to the world?
I think my father was very strict, disciplinarian. He believed very much in education. Education has been hammered on our heads. Dada did not respect anybody who frowned on education or didn't take the opportunity to improve himself or herself educationally. And I think the greatest legacy of my father in the world is that he was authentic to himself. He knew who he was. He was authentic to himself. He could not be bought or sold anyway. He was true until he closed his eyes. And the fact that he taught about the forgiveness. My father could talk to anybody and regarded them as human beings. It doesn't matter whether you are African or from wherever, because my father believed very strongly that no human being is born to hate another person because of the color of their skin. We are taught to hate another person. And so if we are taught through education, not just school formal education, through education widely, we can actually teach the world to be more compassionate, more empathetic and loving of other people, because there are no differences really between us.
I'm glad you came with this book before the holidays as we go in. As people, and it's an amazing book, pictures that people have never seen, your own thoughts. What do you hope when people get this book and put it on their tables at home? What do you hope when they close the book that they've learned and what they will take away from it?
I think I would like people, in a nutshell, Rev, when they take this book, to learn that they can never give up on the struggle for emancipation, and that perseverance and courage is needed, and that we should not lose hope, because the future is brighter than the past. We might not be where we want to be in South Africa, nor in America. I don't think black people or minorities in this country are truly free. Right. But we are at a point where we are far better than things were. And if we've reached this point, we can reach new heights.
He never gave up. 27 years in jail, which had to be hard on his family, and he never gave up.
No, he never gave up until he closed his eyes. And he even said when he gets to heaven, he will join the African National Congress. So he's still continuing his fight in the grave.
We're honored to have had you, and I hope everyone gets the book. Dr. Mackie Mandela, thank you. The book is called Mandela in Honor of an Extraordinary Life. Make sure you get it. That is a holiday gift. Up next, my message to some of this country's most elite colleges and universities.